All right, what's up, everybody? I'm John Warner from the Fantasy Football World Series. Going to be joined shortly by my co-founders, Daniel Crabtree, Mark Garcia, and we're here to bring you a show. We're here to bring you a show based on a brand new style of competition, what we call the $1,000 Invitational. And this show, in tandem with that contest, is designed to showcase the talent of the high-stakes player, the effort, the work, the grind that goes into winning competitive leagues. And we want to provide you guys, the fantasy football players, with a backstage pass, a behind-the-scenes look at the thought process, the strategy, the game theory, the week-to-week value shifts, the quarter-to-quarter value shifts. And the way in which we're going to do that is through this game that we've developed that breaks the season down into 4 quarters. The first quarter, which is already underway, is weeks 1 through 4 of the NFL season, and that's a standard PPR snake draft with tight end premium. The next quarter will be best ball, followed by another quarter of superflex, followed by a 4th quarter of auction, all leading to one showdown of the 3 remaining contestants to compete for Week 17 championship. Each quarter will see $500 given away to the quarter winner, but then all the points will be added up to work towards the overall total. And the overall winner after Week 17 will take home $5,000. All right, so that's the game. Who's playing it? We got Curtis Patrick, co-owner of Rotoviz. We got Noah Riddell from Fade the Noise. We got Justin Herzig, a guy who played 30,000 best ball drafts last year. We got the dynamic duo of Pete Overzet and Pat Green of Ship Chasing, of Rotoviz, of Roto Grinders. We got Ben Gretsch and Michael Leone of Odds Checker and Establish the Run. And then we got Rob Wozniak from the Fantasy Footballers. We got Denny Carter, first guy to tell you he's from Roto World. We got Davis Manick from Roto Grinders, from Swolecast, from the Takecast. And then we got 4 of the best, but relatively unknown high-stakes, season-long, and dynasty players in Todd Miller, Ryan Santos, Wade Locklear, and Justin Hall. So we got a superstar cast of 12 people paying $1,000 to play this contest, and we're going to give you guys a behind-the-scenes look at all of it. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be our first go at a recap draft show. Pleasure to have the boys on the line. How you guys doing?
Good.
What's up, dude?
Good.
All right, so let's just jump right in. Let's just get to the heart of it. What the people want to know is, what is the Fantasy Football World Series? What's it all about? Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I would just say competition, number one. I think that all 3 of us have some level of experience with high-stakes fantasy football, and that's the main draw for us. We've been players for a long time, and so I think building something that appeals first and foremost to high-stakes players, and what kind of competition we can create that's a unique challenge, and something that truly, at the end of the day, we want to find out who the best fantasy football player in the world is. So this is our way to do that, or at least the start of how to do that. We're figuring it out as we go along, but that's the goal we have in mind.
Absolutely, man. Beautifully phrased. Now to dial into what we're specifically talking about today is the Invitational. And Mark, what is the thought process behind the Invitational? What's that look like? What went into that?
Yeah, man. So the Invitational was really, with the idea in mind of finding the best fantasy football player in the world. The Invitational kind of came together in leveraging all 4 major formats, and then giving that kind of final table feel with a 3-person end of season draft. We wanted to stay ahead of the game as the NFL is going to be changing to an 18-week season. So we wanted to leverage that a little bit before anybody else does. and provide that week 17 kind of final table winner take all, not winner take all, but via the championship purse. 3 guys at the end of the year vying for that. So again, it's really the idea behind it was to find the best in the world, have them compete with each other across the 4 major formats, Superflex, Best Ball, Standard, PPR, as well as Auction, and see how leveraging a 4-week season kind of goes into that. And, it kind of leverages a little bit of the DFS ideologies and ideas as well. So pretty cool format, pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like one of my biggest draws to this game format is basically that merging of DFS and season long, where you're short-term projecting, but you're also adding in the waivers and the fab and that as well. So it really does merge the 2 communities. Dan, anything to add?
No, just that. I mean, when you think about the best athletes in the world, you would think about, for me, a decathlete, somebody who can do multiple things is really important. Bo Jackson is one of my favorite athletes. Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, Michael Jordan, all 2-sport athletes. So I think taking the various things in our discipline that are relevant, talent scouting, from the DFS angle, knowing your math, knowing the numbers, and making the right plays, going from both perspectives and combining those things, I think it's really important to finding out who actually is the best. So that's my take on it. I think what's exciting for me is you're always creating to solve problems that affect you, right? And so for me, I feel like I've always been kind of good. I love picking rookies in redraft. That's probably my favorite things to do. But you do, like with AJ Brown last year, it took 8 weeks, and you might have dropped him if you thought Mariota was going to stay in place. So I think the fact that I could just pick up that player, I could draft that player when he is starting to get work, let's say coming into the third quarter, I would have my eyes on a player like T. Higgins, who I think a lot of. But to draft him at the beginning of the season isn't necessarily plus EV, because you never know if what's gonna happen in front of him to give him that opportunity. So I think it's the context of a season, but it's also you have to have, and we'll see here in a moment, like who's doing well in the league so far. You have to have good understanding of matchups and who can be valuable in those matchups.
I'd also just add to that, and we saw it right away with, like, obviously it's an odd year, but we saw it right away with weeks 1 and 2 here with major injuries, where it's kind of like you're sitting at home and you're playing one league and you waited all year to draft that league at August 30th. And then all of a sudden, you think you have this crazy team with Christian McCaffrey, Kittle, and AJ Brown, and all of a sudden it's decimated by week 2, and it's like, well, you just throw your hands up, oh, this year's over, I guess, and just move on like that. I mean, this format gives, and we're going to see this with Noah's team when we pull up the draft board and whatnot, just a little foreshadow, but you're going to see this with Noah's team where he's riddled with injury. He had Barkley as his first pick, and he may finish 12th in this quarter, and he's still very much alive to win the overall because the redraft is coming. And, if he ships 3 quarters in a row, he can still win. Whereas, I'm sorry, if you're playing season long and you drafted what looks like an amazing team in McCaffrey, Kittle, and Brown start from the 101, that team's done.
Yeah.
So it really opens the door to leverage your ability as a player, opposed to just simply, riding the coattails of these players, right?
Yeah, and I think it challenges your depth of knowledge about players, because if you came into the season like knowing nothing about, let's say, Myles Gaskin, who came out of UW, and not a spectacular athlete, but he does have some good numbers, like a 10-yard split is pretty good, and he's quite strong, and he's a smart player. So
4,000-yard seasons.
Yeah. So you knew, at least if you had a good understanding of some of these backup players out there, you knew that if he got an opportunity, like if Breida went down, as he seems to do every year, that this guy was going to be somebody who should be on your radar. So I think the challenge is in season long that even if you know that's the guy, you might not have the budget to pull it off. You might not your team might be full. There's a lot of different reasons like you wouldn't get the player that you know is going to be good. But in this league, 4 weeks in, you get another chance to draft and you get the chance to price that player appropriately. So if you think that's a guy that should go in the 6th round, you can take him there versus having to maybe give up somebody else on your roster in a trade in a home league or, not even have a chance at him because somebody blows 60% of their fab on the guy in week 2. So
absolutely. Dive right into this, Ren. So just for everybody, catch-up reminder, quarter 1 was a PPR tight end premium. It's going to be played through weeks 1 through 4 of the season, and the draft board looked like this. And what jumps up to you? Who do you guys think won this draft? Without the benefit of hindsight, who do you think won the draft, Mark?
Well, going into it or while it was happening, I really actually liked what Waz and Denny were doing. I'm kind of in the same mindset that running backs were overvalued, especially for this first quarter, in the sense that I had predicted there would be increased injury rates. And obviously, we can't predict where those injuries are going to happen, but if you look at the mega or the macro picture of fantasy football, high stakes all the way down this year, the ADPs were heavily tilted towards running backs in the top 2 rounds. And I think that is just a matter of, obviously, there are so few, workhorse running backs, but what people weren't taking into account is basically they were elevating running backs into the first 2 rounds that are not workhorse running backs. I missed on a couple of those guys. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is looking like a workhorse running back. I didn't have him there. But talking purely season long and how that translates into a 4-week season, we don't know where the injuries are going to come from. I had an idea that there were going to be heightened injuries, and I talked about pitchers in the MLB who had a shortened spring training, and there were 58 pitchers who hit the injured list within the first 2.5 weeks. And that was, to me, the closest relatable aspect to kind of think about for the NFL and pro football, in that these players have specialized muscle groups that they need to be warmed up through repetitions. And if you don't get those repetitions, they're more prone to get pulled. And that's why we see a lot of these hamstring injuries, quad injuries, groin injuries. Obviously, the fluky stuff like knees and ACLs and ankle injuries, that's just part of the game. That's going to happen. I could go on for an hour and a half about how turf is so shit for the ACL and the knee. But the hamstring injuries, particularly with wide receivers and running backs who are going from standing still to max speed, in 2.5 seconds, that takes repetition. So pair that idea with the idea that running backs were, I think, overvalued from a macro perspective. And I really liked what Waz and Denny did, ignoring the hype of taking a running back in the first 2 rounds and waiting. Obviously, we don't know where the injuries are going to come from, but yeah, I liked at the time what they were doing.
I mean, you look at Denny's team right there and you see round 10 and he gets James Robinson. And then you see James Robinson's usage through the first 2 weeks of the season. And it's like, whoa, if we're redrafting tomorrow, I mean, that's a 5-6 round guy. And he's loaded up at wide receiver through that range. You know what I mean? Who stands out to you, Dan?
So I think thinking about a 4-week schedule, my first thought was like some of the in tournaments, some of the playoffs where you're weeks 14 through 16. What type of players are you wanting going into that? I think big score guys are boom bust guys. Would appeal to me if I was doing the draft. I liked what Denny did. I think that a 0 running back team is a bit of a struggle in the first 4 weeks, just because you don't know. Like James Robinson did work out, but that wasn't a lock. So I think you don't know how those backfields are going to develop. So I would probably be more prone to do a 0 RB team or a late round running back team, probably in Q2, Q3. But as far as everybody liked Noah's draft. I would just say everybody liked Noah's draft.
Well, I mean, I'm on the record as saying it. We were 8 rounds through in the live stream. Oh, by the way, go watch the live stream if you guys haven't already, because it's pretty good.
We should call him the Jort Squatter.
Yeah,
that's how it was known in our house. When my wife and I are talking about Noah, we're just,
Mr.
Jort Squatter. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the record as saying like halfway through the draft that like, oh yeah, Noah's team's incredible, but yeah, he's been riddled with the injury bug. Interesting though that you guys are both talking like 0 RB and stuff like that with the tight end premium. Like, what do you guys think with what Ben and Michael did there? Like, just went, we're slamming the 2 best tight ends early. We're playing them both and just figuring the rest out.
Mark would be more of an early tight end guy. Typically, I'm not. I did take Kelsey in the first round a couple times this year, but I personally, I was a big Waller fan after being on him last year, and I think I think Fant was a good, a viable. I think going with Fant, Hawkinson, Jonnu, those guys, just grabbing one of them and going in a 4-week schedule, you're not tied to them for the rest of the year. So if they don't work out, then it's not that big of a loss. I should say, when we finish the first 4 weeks, you'll be scored 12-1. So the first place team will get 12 points, and the last place team gets 1 point. So if you think about I have to win it all this quarter, then premium a premium tight end like Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz, whatever, I think would probably be a better strategy. But if you're taking a tight end in the mid rounds, and we didn't know those guys were going to work out. Obviously, tight ends have done really well so far, but we didn't know before the season, and it didn't work out. Then I'm looking at going from first to maybe 4th place or 5th place, but that's okay. In our model, that's not the worst thing in the world, because you're looking at over the 4 quarters, how well can I do?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mark, what do you think about the punt quarterback strategy? Denny just didn't take a quarterback and then took Tyrod with his second last pick.
I love the punt quarterback philosophy, especially in a league with waivers. Really, back to the live stream of the draft itself, with Pete and Pat, the discussion of taking 2 quarterbacks, that was hilarious. But I would firmly side on the side of 1 quarterback or a late quarterback, and with the ability to stream. We see guys like Gardner Minshew, who I was extremely high on to start the year, being taken towards the end of drafts, and he's currently quarterback 9. We saw guys like Cam Newton being taken a little bit later in the draft, round 11 from Justin Hull. And we see him, he's the QB3 right now through 2 weeks. So these late quarterbacks, especially either on teams with bad defenses and weapons on offense, aka the Jags and the Panthers, or these late quarterbacks with rushing upside like Cam Newton. And even, it sounds disgusting, but Mitch Trubisky's in that kind of vein as well. Hasn't panned out thus far, but
magic, maybe.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, so we'll. I'm definitely on the side of waiting on quarterback as opposed to spending one of those premium rounds in the first 5 rounds taking one.
Absolutely. Okay, let's just jump into any picks that really stood out to you guys. I mentioned the Robinson one before there, but just before we move on to the upcoming weeks here or how they played out, any big picks that stood out to you when you look at this draft board, Dan?
Diggs Parker. Diggs Parker was a smash all day long in any draft that you were in. Diggs Parker was, and I know Parker missed half a game, but still, man, those two guys are premium talents in great situations where, I think that you could look at the Bills game as a heavy running attack coming into the year, but if you followed the trajectory of Josh Allen and what they're doing in Buffalo with him, then I think it was always going to be an offense centered around him, and he can throw the ball. He has some terrible throws throughout every game. That happens, but generally he's going to hit some big plays, and Diggs is the perfect receiver for that offense. So
yeah, you saw it a bit last year with the way they would force it deep with Foster. Like they were just looking for that, like just looking to take advantage of him pushing the ball downfield.
God rest.
Yeah, and when you're trying to fire the ball into traffic, accuracy is like so important. But when you're heaving the ball 40 yards down the field and it's Diggs and one or two DBs, then he can find the ball a lot easier in space. So I think the Bills stack was one that like I would have smashed all day long because they came out with, what was it, Jets, then Miami last week. They have the Rams this week, tough for defense. But then the week after that, they get the Raiders. So I love the Bills stack coming into it, and I felt like Diggs Parker, you're getting two potentially top 5 wide receivers for the beginning of the season in rounds 5 and 6.
Nice. How about you, Mark?
Kenny Golladay in the 6th round by Ryan Santos at the time I was mind blown. That's such a solid pick. Obviously, it hasn't worked out with the injury, but he should be back playing this week. And then obviously we'd be remiss not to talk about old Todd Miller, scoundrel in the 11th spot, taking Derrick Henry and Miles Sanders, thinking about their playoff schedule and then realizing that it was a 4-week. That was classic. Shout out to the kids took Sanders.
Well, the funny thing about the kids taking Sanders is it might work, you know?
Oh, yeah. He's going to hit this week.
Smashes 3 weeks here. I mean, they have nobody who's going to catch the ball other than the 2 tight ends this week. And then get those dump offs out of the backfield. I mean, nobody's protecting Wentz right now. If he just finally gets rid of the football, like there's a chance that Sanders smashes the next 2 weeks as well, right? I mean,
I will say though, after watching the game last week, Wentz is this sounds terrible, but Wentz is no Rivers, man. Wentz is not as accurate in with the short throws as some of the other quarterbacks in the league. So I think he'll have to work on it. I think it's, obviously Wentz is best when throwing to the middle of the field. So
forever.
What's that?
For a banged up offensive line, he holds onto the ball forever. It's
yeah. I don't know what he's doing. He has a hero complex a bit, but.
All right, let's jump over to check out what the league's looking like now. Nailed it. Oh man, first time with the new software. All right,
software virgin.
All right, so after 2 weeks, we got Justin's team in first place here. He had a massive Monday night with Kamara there. Take a look at Justin's team again here.
He had Waller and Kamara.
Yeah, Waller and Kamara on the Monday night was massive because they were neck and neck going into Monday night there. And I mean, I'd like to probe you guys for just an overarching game theory take. Coming into this contest, knowing that you basically have to put up points. Like an 8th place finish is significantly better than a 12th place finish with just the amount of points you put up. Are we looking for floor guys here? Like,
Always.
Say again, Mark?
Always.
Yeah.
So how I approach roster construction, and that's another, thing that I could talk an hour and a half about, but roster construction for me is a mix of floor and ceiling. And I'm looking at my roster as a whole when I'm taking that into account, as opposed to individual players. For example, like Jalen Reagor, we'll just talk about him real quick. Like Jalen Reagor has as high of a ceiling as not only any other rookie playing any week, but pretty much any other wide receiver playing any week. And the reason is that offense is designed to basically take shots downfield, set up from the short areas of the field work that they typically dink and dunk to set up the deep pass. And we saw week 1, he was in the 58% snap range, something like that. And in week 2, it jumped up into the high 70s. So we knew that he was going to be involved with the injuries to the Philadelphia pass catchers. And we know now that with his snap rate increasing, he's going to see those deep looks. When you think about drafting him or starting him any given week, because he has such a high ceiling, he also comes with a pretty low floor in that his likeliest scenario for a week is anywhere between 4 to 7 targets. So if you're thinking about playing him, I would look to bolster the rest of your lineup's floor to pair with that high ceiling. And that's something that not a lot of people think about. And I think it especially rings true for a 4-week season here where you really can fall behind the 8 ball pretty quickly if you're just playing a bunch of high ceiling guys and disregarding floor.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at Justin's roster construction, he looks like he has a lot of floor to fall back on, like Larry Fitzgerald, like Golden Tate, like those type of players. Anthony Miller should be something similar, but those type of players to fall back on as well,
Yeah, for sure.
All right, boys. So just looking at the standings here and just noting that the difference between 5th place and first place at this moment is like 60 points, right? Taking that into consideration and taking into consideration that we're redrafting soon, you just want to score as many points as you can in this quarter. Are these coming into your lineup decisions this week, week 3? If I'm sitting there and I'm Waz in 6th place and I'm looking up and I'm 70 points behind the leader, am I taking some floor and just trying to hang on to 6th here? Or am I gunning for that first spot? Do I think I still have a chance at it? Because to remind everyone, if you win the quarter, you win $500. The buy-in's $1,000. You win 2 quarters, you get your money back kind of deal, right? You get half your buy-in off the top right now, like Justin's free rolling the rest of the way kind of deal. Thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, so that it's such an interesting dynamic with the way that we set this league up is you have to make those decisions. You have to figure out if your ultimate goal is to take down the championship. If that's the case, you have to be top 3 of cumulative points at the end of the year. And when I say cumulative points, we assign a point value for your league finish and we inverse it. So first place will get 12 points. Second place will get 11 and then on down the line. So if you are finishing 9th to 12th in that bottom third, it's going to be really hard to make up those points in the following quarters to try and get that top 3 spot to compete for, the championship purse. So yeah, those are definitely decisions that you got to make. Do you shoot to, raise your weekly ceiling for the last 2 weeks and try and climb the leaderboard? Or you try and maintain your position if you're, in the bottom half of the league to just bank those points for the yearly leaderboard? Definitely interested to see how kind of guys start to attack this.
Dan, anything to add there?
Well, if I'm Waz, I'm pouring myself a strong drink, first of all, because he looked like a genius after week 1, and then week 2 he fell flat on his face. So drink first, probably take a nap after that, and then I would honestly try to stay in the top half of the league. That would probably be my strategy overall. If I was in this contest, I would be aiming for the top half of the league first 3 quarters, and using more floor players maybe like Mark suggested, and then just see where I'm at after 3 quarters, and then 4th quarter I'd be depending on where I was, I'd be either going for it or playing a little bit safe and trying to stay in that top 3. So that's the way I would look at it. But we'll see. Waz is a pretty smart guy. I liked his on the stream cast, In This Economy. I saw him even wait a little bit to get the timing right, and the timing was perfect. I couldn't even figure out who said it at first. I had to rewatch it like 2 or 3 times. But
I mean, Waz is one of those guys. He sneaks up on you. He's sneaky funny, right? Like he's not going to be the guy that he's talking the whole time, but every time he drops a little nugget in there, it's gold. And look, I mean, just speaking to that, we are cutting together, for those that don't know, we're cutting together player profiles from each of these drafts into like 2-minute snippets so people can see these moments played back, because it is quite entertaining watching these talented players drafting teams while they're just BSing about with the boys as well. It has that home league feel, yet they're playing for thousands of dollars. So, I mean, it's a great dynamic, a great back and forth there. And I mean, Waz was just showcasing that for sure.
Waz is one of those. Waz is the middle of the class guy. You know, you got your class clowns in the back of the class. Most of those people are idiots, and like as soon as high school is over, they're going straight to vocational school. And no offense to any of that, but they're idiots, or they're coming back again for another year. A 5th-year superstar. Waz is, and he's not a front of the class guy, because people in the front of the class guy, those guys want to be like known.
Those are the brown nosers. The brown nosers. Yeah.
He's a middle of the class guy. He doesn't say much, but when he does, you're looking around like, who said that? I like the guy. I like the guy a lot. I didn't know him before this, so it was kind of cool. First CD, obviously. CD is I've been watching him do his thing for years, so it was good to get introduced to some new personalities as well.
Absolutely. So before this, so at the time of this filming right now, we are through 2 weeks. We're the Thursday morning before the Thursday nighter starts. We got the Fitch Magic versus the Minshew Bowl tonight, the greatest game ever played on Thursday Night Football, hands down. I mean, we got all the best players in the world. We got Myles Gaskin. I mean, let's go. So our waivers have yet to run for that, because our waivers run 2 hours prior to the Thursday night kickoff, allowing guys to, or 3 hours before, just allowing the guys to absorb as much information as possible before putting those claims in. But we can break down kind of just a couple highlights of, not go through everything, but just the way people are spending budget and this and that. I imagine with all the injuries we saw this week, there's going to be some large expenditures here. These 200 numbers are not going to stay there for long. They're going to be spent on, all the backup running back types that are filling weekly roles. But just interesting of note to look at the difference in strat. We got Ryan and Curtis down here who have basically just blown their loads already. And Ryan blew it on.
Are you allowed to say blow your loads on our podcast?
We can say whatever we want. This is all right.
All right. I can't. My mother watches this, so I'm not allowed to say that.
Well, my mom's right over there. She just heard me say it, right?
You're in her basement right
now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my mom's basement, right? That's where
that's even worse.
Yeah, we're filming from my mom's basement, right?
If she hears you say it live, then she knows you really meant it. You meant to say it in front of her. That's even more audacious.
I kid. I would never. Okay, yeah, but just to talk about the strat, like Curtis, $169, nice, on Russell Gage in the first week there. Very interesting. Then he drops Curtis Samuel, and then Curtis Samuel gets added for 17 the next week. Might get some running back style touches there, but it's just interesting to note the strat. Like, it clearly paid off to spend that money on Russell Gage, and he came out and balled again the next week. Julio dropped that 60-yard touchdown. He would have had that pass as well in there. But just initial thoughts, Mark, on like the way guys are allocating budget here.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting to see, 6 guys have not spent $1 so far, which is kind of blows my mind for a 4-week season. I would be attacking this much more aggressively, kind of similar to what Curtis and Ryan Santos have been doing, in that, if a player is there that's going to help you for the next 4 weeks due to injury or whatever the case, I'd be going out to get them. This week is going to be interesting. There's not going to be 6 guys with 200 left for this first waiver run in a few hours. There's a lot of multi-week running back injuries that happen in week 2, so we'll see how that plays out in a few hours. But I'd expect for a lot of fab to be thrown around here tonight.
Absolutely. Dan, you expect the same?
Yeah, I think it's probably somewhat due to just getting used to the game a little bit. I mean, you got to understand that these guys are being thrown into something that they've never. I mean, they played DFS, but this is pretty different from that as well. So I think that some of it is just people getting used to a new environment, a new game to play. For me, I'm always one to. I always wait a little bit just to see how things play out and see where I can apply my leverage. That's what the fab is leverage, right? So you either apply it quickly and get what you can, or you wait a little bit and try to apply it as well as you can. So I think the other thing is that we have 3 flex spots. So using like the Russell Gage, I think it was 170 or 169. Nice, you said that.
Yeah.
That only fills 1 flex spot. So you might wait a little bit and spread it around. I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I personally have been thinking about quarters for almost a year now, so I have. It's in my head, but these guys, this is the first time that they're playing it. So
just interesting to just, run down here. Dion Lewis, Devontae Adams, Jeff Wilson. Yeah, I don't know. Just some interesting names. Michael Pittman had a nice role last week after Paris Campbell went down. Yeah, some interesting names. Chris Conley tonight. If this game's a shootout and DJ Shark can't go, who knows? Maybe he jumps in there and makes some noise.
Shark is officially out.
Is he as of right now?
Yeah.
You hate to see it.
The biggest increase in snap rate for that. So
who? Sorry,
Conley should see the biggest increase in snap rate with Shark being
out. Cole was already pretty heavily involved, right?
Cole won't move from the slot, so he'll basically only play in 3 wide sets, which they're running about 68% right now. So I'd expect that to remain relatively stable.
Okay.
I would agree with that, but don't tell Pete. Pete is like on the Visca show. So
Visca should be around that range as well.
Yeah, I mean, be interesting now with that news and whatnot, if Visca makes it into their lineup tonight. I mean, I can't imagine that they have better options as a 6th place team. What are we talking? Oh,
I'll say yes.
Right there in the number 1 slot.
I've seen some of his other teams too, and they have Visca.
Yeah, locked and loaded, eh?
If he could copy paste Visca into every wide receiver and flex spot, I think he would, and just live or die with that one player.
I mean, he's running back.
Put him in there.
Yeah, he had running back. Yeah, true. Can he throw? He did throw. Did he throw balls in college? I forget.
They were talking about using some Wildcat with Visca.
Yeah, they should. Well, the only thing that he could probably kick field goals. But that wouldn't count in FFWS. We don't have kickers, so
yeah, no kickers, no defense for a damn reason. Love it.
Yeah. If you love kickers, it's not the show for you.
Yeah, out of here.
Instead of shortening the rosters, we'll talk real quick about that. We did remove kickers and defense, but we didn't want to shorten the rosters because we wanted the competition to be tight. We wanted to test these players. So we actually moved it up to 10 again for all the formats except Superflex. We made it an 11-spot start roster. So we wanted to, have 3 wide receivers to kind of balance out the fact that running backs were so overdrafted and kind of see how the players would handle that. And then 2, we added 3 flex spots. So really, really testing depth of knowledge, depth charts, all that kind of stuff, kind of that DFS mentality here.
Absolutely. Actually, it's just interesting to note as I'm flipping through the rosters and whatnot, he spends the 169 on Gage, and then he doesn't play him in week 2. Instead, he opted for Naheem Hines, which I mean, fine, but like the benefit of that's a close. But these are the fun decisions that these deep lineups create, because you're making these razor thin decisions between Naheem Hines and Russell Gage or James Washington or Tyler Boyd, like stuff like that, right? You're not deciding between like, oh, I have a really good team and I'm deciding between whatever. You know what I'm trying to say? Like I'm not making a decision of whether like Deontay Johnson was my third receiver and whether I can put him in instead of, Corey Davis or Tyler Boyd or something like that. You're making these extremely marginal decisions, right?
Yeah.
Helps to bring to forefront the talent. All right. Well, with all that in mind, is a 50-point lead insurmountable? I'll get Dan's thoughts first. Who's winning? Who's taking down the 500 beans and quarter 1 of the very first ever Invitational?
Like I was kind of saying before, I think you got to be top 6. I guess that was in reference to the whole season, but I think halfway through the quarter, even with the insane season we've had so far, and the scoring is way up. So 50 points isn't what 50 points would have been last year, that's for sure. But I still think I would want to be, if I wanted a shot at winning Q1, I would want to be in that top half. You can probably call Ben Gretsch a competitor as well in the 7 spot. But I think curtains are drawn for CD Carter. I think ship chasing should ship it. And our boy Noah, man, he's like he's the underground high stakes player that I would have picked to win the whole thing, to be honest, before the season. But and that's no offense to 11 other players. I'm just saying that they all suck and they're not as good as Noah.
Well, that's the beauty of this format is you could make a case that putting the talent on display would be even more impressive to finish 12th in Q1 and then come back and ship like 2 of the remaining 3 quarters and then find his way into the final table and win. Like, that's what this dynamic introduces, right? It's this might be time for if you're still buying Noah stock. I think Noah stock you're still buying, right? The price has just come down a little bit.
I saw him squat like 1 million pounds. So that much testosterone in one man, I buy that stock.
Put the team on his back. Put the whole league on his back.
Yeah, there's no better chemical for production than testosterone. So I'm in.
I like it. And Mark, what are you thinking here? Is this a tight knit group? All basically spots 9 through 2 can flip flop at any moment. But is anyone going to catch Justin now?
What happened? You cut out.
Is anybody going to catch Justin now?
Yeah, man. I don't think any elite is really insurmountable with the NFL season the way that it is. I mean, look at Waz. He was on top of the world and then scored 50 points fewer in week 2. So this is going to be a crazy season. There's going to be stuff happening that we just can't predict, and it's gonna be a pretty wild ride. So I don't think anyone is necessarily out, especially for this first quarter.
Let's handicap it though. Let's say who. Let's just give your top 3, Mark and John, for Q1 to finish. Considering not only the teams but the personalities and whether they're the type of person who can win Q1 of the Fantasy Football World Series.
I think Curtis Patrick is definitely a front runner. I think Waz is still highly in the mix. And Wade, I think people would do themselves a disservice if they're counting out Wade.
Yeah, the people are sleeping on Wade. I'm not gonna lie there, but I'm not betting against that mustache that Justin's got. I mean, are you kidding me? Dude, the guy has the stash of a stallion. I mean, you got all all the running backs and you banked on your wide receivers, I mean, this guy's buzzing right now. I'm not betting against the stash.
Yeah, it would be hard, especially like I said, next week they get the Raiders. That should be a high scoring contest as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Personally, I think Curtis Patrick, Herzig, and then I would also pick Waz in my top three. And that's not just because they have good teams; it's also because I like them.
I love it.
And the
All
rest
right,
of them don't like as much.
Gentlemen, this has been a pleasure. This is the first of hopefully many. That was a lot of fun start here. Good to see the league underway. Good to see the strategies being deployed. Good to talk it through with you guys. Good to hear a little bit of the insight, the background to this whole platform effectively. So, any last words?
Excited to see this play out, man.
Yeah, we appreciate these guys for playing in the inaugural contest. We have a lot coming on the site. I think if you are involved with the FFWS or if you're following it, we are here to take care of you. And this is a rocket ship to the moon.
Absolutely.
So hop on.
Iceberg.
Yeah. I didn't mean to make such a sexual reference with the rocket ship, but we're going places.
Sounds great. All right. Appreciate your time, boys. And we'll be back.
Yeah, man.
We're victory.